haven't seen inside the van either, so this is the first time that we're looking in it as well, so yeah. I just can't even look. Oh my god. Oh my
So yeah, this is I don't know, the contents of Under the Bonnet, I guess. There's all kinds of stuff that I don't know what it is. Right, good evening folks, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Lou, this is Emily.
Hello.
And we are finally getting around to pulling our fingers out of our bum and making this AA breakdown cover review video that we've been promising for ages.
Weeks.
If you don't know the story, basically we our self-converted camper van broke down right at the bottom of Spain, just south of Granada, in the middle of nowhere, with what was a suspected head gasket failure at the time, which meant we had to call the AA. Luckily we had European breakdown cover. We called the AA, they took us to a Citroen garage in Spain. We had to wait 2 weeks, just over 2 weeks, for that Spanish garage to diagnose the fault, which took us right on top of Christmas. So then we had to wait a few more days before we could start the journey home by rental car and by taxi, because the AA agreed that they would take our van back to the UK for us. To overcomplicate things all that bit more, we had to do all that with a dog.
So much fun. You can watch them videos back in the description, there'll be a link.
Yeah, I've set up a separate playlist all about the breakdown, because it was a very extensive, long, complicated breakdown. So there is a whole playlist in the description if you want to go and check those out.
Anyway, before we start, we do have to address the fact that we've had a major complaint from within a member of our own team. So AJ's very unhappy that he's not been featured in the vlogs lately. Partly due to not being able to walk and stuff, but he's kind of ripped us a new one this past week, isn't he?
He's not impressed.
No. So we've said he can come into this vlog and he's going to be head of our categories.
So category number 1, type of cover and cost. We had full European breakdown cover, an annual policy, without optional parts and labour added on top. Covering geographical zone 2, so you will need to speak to the AA, or if you do it online you can pick which countries it covers and which countries it doesn't, because European breakdown cover doesn't necessarily cover all of Europe.
No.
So you will need to check that out. It should have been £205.63, but as we were existing AA members within the UK, we got a discount, so it came to £123.38.
And I just want to say that I was the one that called up and sorted out the European breakdown cover, just because I'm amazing. But that's not the point. But the person who I spoke to on the phone was exceptionally helpful and really good and very friendly, and really made it very easy for me to understand, because I don't deal with that type of stuff. And he went through the zones and stuff and that with me and asked me what countries that we were definitely going in, what ones we might go in, and sorted out the zones.
So they were very good on the phone.
Yeah, that was really good. Category 2, what's covered and what's not.
Okay, so we'll give you a brief overview of what's covered and what's not, because it is quite extensive, and I will put, this is our thing, so I'll put this up on the screen as I go through it. So you get roadside cover or recovery to a local repairer. You don't get to choose the garage, they decide which garage it goes to. Locating and dispatching spare parts within Europe, well, we didn't need that. Cost tools, emergency repairs to locks and windows after attempted theft, up to the value of £200. Alternative travel arrangements up to the value of £1,500, and that alternative travel encompasses your alternative travel to a hotel, and then if you need to go home, that comes out of the same budget, so it's £1,500 for all of it. Emergency accommodation up to £500 per party with a limit of £60 per person per night. Legal costs up to the value of £50,000, recovery to the UK or recovery to your destination depending on where you was going. Pre-agreed travel and accommodation to collect your vehicle if you return home and repairs are completed in Europe. So for example, if we'd have left our van there to be fixed and it was going to take many weeks, the AA would have pre-agreed with us a cost to come back and pick that up at a later date. Just on that note, recovery to the UK, don't assume that you can just have that. You can't. They have to get the van or your vehicle diagnosed first before they will agree to tow it home. So you can't just say, well, just tow me home. It doesn't work like that.
No, and it has to be sort of an unreasonable cost.
Yes.
for it to be fixed in that country, for them to go, actually it's cheaper to do it at home, we'll tow you home.
What's not insured, so cost of repairs and replacement parts, obviously they're not going to pay to get it fixed for you, unless you go for that optional cover where they'll give you £500 towards it. Personal luggage and equipment isn't covered, so if something happened to all your belongings, that's not covered. Additional costs as a result of travelling with pets. So we had a dog. They was actually very good with arrangements for us because of the dog, but no extra cover was there if cost-wise if we needed it for the dog. Cost covered under your nominated vehicle's warranty. Didn't know that, but basically if you've still got a warranty on the vehicle, it's not going to count. Non-emergency repairs. Rallying, off-road driving on motorsports. So if you drive your van like a loony, it's not covered. And non-UK registered vehicles.
Category 3, things to note.
Yeah, so there's a few things that you might want to note before you start. So this is mostly for other motorhomers and vanners. There is a size restriction, so for the cover that we had, so your vehicle has to be within 3.5 tonnes. So that's most of us out straight away. any self-build's well over. No longer than 7 metres, no wider than 2.3 metres, and no higher than 3 metres. So we even with our solar panels and our ladder on the back, we fell inside of those dimensions, so that's fine. You can only claim 3 times on one policy. Well, if your van's broke 3 times in one policy, you're stuffed, don't you?
Yeah.
A maximum party size of 8 persons. So if you are in some sort of party bus, you're not all going to be covered. This is where it gets a bit tricky. So your nominated vehicle will not be recovered if it will cost more than its current market value. So if you take out AA breakdown in a very old motorhome or van, and the cost for repairs, say it's going to be £2,000, which in Spain is quite likely, and your market value of that van's only 1,500 quid, regardless of what extras you've put in it, you will not be recovered home because it's not worth it for them. And if the repair costs are £500 or less, which is why they wait for the diagnosis, then they won't bring you home. So if it's 495 quid, you have to pay that repair cost. The AA won't recover you home. Obviously, you must have your driving licence, and this isn't listed on here, but I'd bring it up. You should take a credit card, because if you have to start using a hire car, we needed a credit card to be able to do the hire. Even though the AA are paying for it, you still need that credit card for the deposit. So you pay the deposit and then they give it to you back. And if you're planning on towing a caravan or trailer, so if you've got a motorhome where you tow a car or anything like that, they need to know that as well. Make sure all that's in, because I think if they're not, they won't cover you. So that's the things that really. So there's lots more terms and conditions, but we picked out the ones we feel are most relevant.
Yeah, and if your vehicle is above any of them restrictions, I think it would still be worth giving them a call, because this is the cover that fitted our van.
So, yeah, they may offer a different cover if you're willing to pay extra for outside of those, but we don't know. So
no.
Right, category number 4, our experience whilst in Europe, plus the full costs of what the AA paid for, how much it all cost, how much it ended up costing us, and what it would have cost us if we didn't have the cover. Enter Emily's spreadsheet.
And I've actually got a spreadsheet and everything. Wait a minute, don't look at my password.
So why they kind of carry pointing that way. So while she's doing that, I'll quickly go over our experience with them, because I've got to be honest, at this point, when we broke down, so I knew there was a problem with the van. I'd been to a couple of garages. They didn't speak English. Because there was smoke coming out of the exhaust, they didn't want to know. And trying to organise anything yourself in that situation would have been an absolute nightmare. They were brilliant, weren't they?
I cannot fault them at all. And the amount of times that I called them as well, I'm surprised they just didn't block my number. But
yeah, so it was a very difficult time because it was right on top of Christmas. Obviously there's the pandemic and all that going on. And our breakdown was a tricky one, or at least we thought it was a tricky one. So yeah, it was difficult, but organisation-wise, you could always get them on the phone. They always spoke good English, because you get put through to, mostly it was France, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Always spoke good English. They always rang you back if they said they was going to ring you back. We did have to ring them quite a lot to try and keep in the loop, but we would have really struggled without them at that point. They organised most things, apart from, because it was the pandemic and a lot of things were closed, we found it easier to organise our own B&Bs and then claim the cost back.
Yeah, and they did try and discourage us from organising our own, because they said it's about a 6-week sort of wait time to claim the money back. Mm-hmm. But they was just open and honest with everything that they told us, down to the fact that they said that, when we was taking out the cover, if you do break down, we will always pick you up, but it might be slower and things like that. So they'd been very open and honest, and I just thought that was
so
brilliant.
At that point they were brilliant. So cost-wise, so we'll start with accommodation.
Yep.
Yeah. So accommodation, we had up to £500 of cover for emergency accommodation.
And we spent £1,190, and that was 26 nights in hotels and Airbnbs from the moment that we broke down to the moment that we got home.
Yeah, so the big part of that was because it took over 2 weeks just for the garage to diagnose it. Then it was Christmas, so we had to wait a few more days, and then obviously we had to drive from the south of Spain all the way up to France. So it was a longer than normal period, I would say.
And as well, we didn't know where our next hire car was going to be, so we had to try and logistically do it. So it wasn't a case of being able to bomb it straight up to France. Because
so if you've got to cross multiple borders, you pick up the hire car and drop it off before you cross the next border. So we would then have to get a taxi from Spain to France, and then again we had to get a taxi from France to the UK. You can't take the hire cars over the borders, so you do have to chop and change.
Yeah.
So £1,190, but obviously we had £500 worth of cover, so it cost us £690.
Yep. Hire cars and taxis. So the cover gives us...
So this is your alternative travel, so you have a maximum of £1,500 at this point.
And it cost £1,182. So it cost us nothing.
Yeah, so all of that was covered. That's 3 hire cars and 4 different taxis. And the tunnel to get across from France to England?
No, I haven't put the tunnel on there, actually.
Right, okay. So with the exception of the tunnel crossing, it was £1,182.
Yeah.
All in. So it's a lot of money if you haven't got cover.
Yeah. And the tow home...
Yeah, so because the Spanish garage wanted €4,500 to fix a problem that they couldn't guarantee would solve the problem, we opted to have the van towed home. And the tow home would have been, if we had to pay for it, £3,500.
It's mental, isn't it, the price?
Yeah, so we looked for quotes ourselves when we were still unsure of what was happening, and they ranged from £2,500 up to £4,000. So, yeah, the tow home from the south of Spain would have been a lot of money.
So that total, we haven't put in things like food, fuel and stuff like that because we would have had to pay for that type of stuff anyway. And that's why I left out the crossing as well, because in my head we would have had to pay for that anyway. But the total is £5,872 that was paid out for this breakdown. And what it cost us was £690.
Yeah, so without cover, we was over £5,000 we would have had to pay extra on top. So yeah, it's a hell of a lot of money, and it's a huge saving by having the cover.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's it was worth that £123, without a doubt. Oh, and I just want to plug a little bit of like what 3 words here, just because that was how the AA managed to find us. Because what they normally do is they send a text message through, which they done to mine and Louise's phone, but they couldn't narrow it down so much. I think maybe because
we was in the middle of nowhere.
We was in the middle of nowhere, so we gave them the what 3 words location, and they found us straight away. So if you don't have that,
yeah, what 3 words really did help us there.
Yeah. Category 5. When there's a problem.
So this is where we was a little bit surprised. So basically what happened was the AA didn't tell us the van was being brought back. We actually got a call from the chap who had it on his tow truck. And he said to us, and if you've followed the videos, you'll know we was expecting this. Do you know what state your van's in? It's still in pieces. It's a right mess. So obviously at this point we started to get a little bit worried. So I rang the AA just because I knew I had some sort of legal cover but didn't know what it covered. So I rang the AA and said, look, the chap's rung us up. He said it's in this state. I said, is there anything that you cover us for if we need to make a complaint or seek out any damages, costs or anything like that? And she said, leave it with me. Wait till you actually get the van back. Then you can send us some pictures and then we will deal with it thereafter. Well, the van was delayed coming back because of Brexit, so we just left it until the van got back. But in that time, we received an email from the AA saying, thank you so much for your complaint. Here's a £25 voucher for your trouble, and that's the end of it. Don't contact us again.
And it literally was at the bottom, I've closed your case, please don't contact it. It was like that as well.
Yeah, which we found
quite abrupt.
It was very abrupt, and we thought, well, we've not even made a complaint. We just run up with a query to what sort of cover we might have in case there's a massive problem. So anyway, the van come back. It was obviously in pieces. The engine was all over the living space, an absolute nightmare. So unhappy with their response, we rung them back, and it took forever to even get to speak to our case manager. Or well, we didn't, did we? In the end,
no, we didn't. She didn't.
She wouldn't speak to us. So we then sent them all the photos, everything that had happened, all the information. And eventually, about 2 weeks later, we received an email. And basically, the email says, have you got the email?
Yeah. So this is it.
Okay, so Thank you for your email of the 21st of January. I'm sorry if you have had to contact us again. In response to your email, while we arrange assistance under the European Breakdown Policy, third-party service providers, including garages, repairers, recovery operators, car hire companies, etc., are not approved by the AA and do not act as agents for the AA. Now, the reason we bring this up is because when this happened to us, all of our friends, all of our subscribers all got in touch and said, no, the AA, they only use approved garages, they only use approved recovery companies. Yep. The AA will make sure that your vehicle comes back in one piece. I even rang the AA prior to all this and said, will the vehicle be put back together? And they said, we will not collect it unless it's fit for transit. Now, the van come back, the engine was hanging on one mount and it was resting on the drive shaft, which means once it got back to our house, we had to push it off because the van wouldn't roll. All of the grates and covers were off the bonnet, so the engine, the bottom end of the engine, because the top end was just in the habitation area, was full of water, so there'd been no check. Now, the problem was the wait time for the tow truck was, they told us it'd be at least 3 weeks, so we couldn't stay in Spain, because we'd already been staying in hotels for 3 weeks at this point anyway. We couldn't stay in Spain for another 3 weeks, so we thought, well, the AA will look after it, it'll come back in a decent state. So we left, made our way home, and the van came back after us. Now, that's quite common. If you're going for a tow home, I understand it's common practice that you might have to wait 3-4 weeks for that recovery. So we just wanted to make sure that you're in mind that your van's not covered at that point. So if something's stolen, if something's broken, if things are moved around, if it comes back with extra mileage on it, which I know has happened to other people in the past, the AA aren't covering that. There's no recourse really for you to go back on. So we was quite shocked about that really.
Yeah, and we haven't had a look. It might be in the T's and C's.
It probably is.
And it probably is. So, but we all know what everyone's like about T's and C's. Nobody really reads them, and then that's when it like sort of screws you up type of thing. Oh, ruined it. There's always one. But yeah, so, and like I say, it's probably in there. We haven't checked, but we just wanted to let you guys know because we had that email from them and it does state that, and we know that so many people many people have said to us that, well, it's in the care of the AA now, so it'll be looked after, and they take no responsibility. So if it fell off the tow truck on the motorway back through France, not down to the AA. It's down to whichever independent company they've got. So basically, at that point, the AA are just booking agents, really, for your recovery home. They take no responsibility. However, that being said, because of the costs and because of how organised... Oh, okay. However, because of that being said, we're going on to our final category. Which is our final faults. You are crap. Our final faults. So, although we had that little bit at the end when it was coming back, that was a bit crappy, basically.
Can I just add on that as well? Yeah. I think what made it so crappy was how abrupt and how much they did. You couldn't even speak to anyone. No. It was a case of... That's it.
Well, at one point when Louise was trying to call up, she was getting very angry because this lady didn't even work
couldn't
there.
Even find her.
They was like, who? And after about half an hour of ringing various different phone numbers,
we managed. I rang every department in the AA to try and get to speak to someone that was part of these customer care or whatever they call that bit. Yeah.
So, but anyway, like apart from that, overall for me, I would still go and do the AA again.
I think, I definitely have breakdown cover. You've got to travel with breakdown cover. If you don't, it's stupid. But just make sure that you understand that the AA or whoever you use probably aren't taking any responsibility for anything. They are just booking agents for various different parts of your process, which they are extremely good at and were brilliant at. So
yeah, they really were, like every time, and even when we wanted them to call the garage for us, they done it and got back to us. So as booking agents and covering them costs, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And you just need to have cover. If that has not shown you that it would have cost over £5,000, but it only cost us 600.
£5,000 and a massive headache trying to do all these things on the phone when no one really speaks any English.
No, so that's it. And that is our own fault for not speaking the other languages as well if we're travelling in these countries. So we do understand that, but European breakdown cover, get it!
But just be aware it's not what you think.
Yeah, look into the T's and C's.
Yeah. And on that note, guys, I hope you found this video useful. I know it's not our usual ninja style action comedy extravaganza, However,
It's been a stressful week and we don't really like each other at the moment. So.
that time in the month, and on that note, we will leave it there. If you like this video, do the usual, give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button.
Hey, I'm pretty sure AJ wants to say a few things at the end.
Oh yeah, AJ has got a little message for you, and we will see you on the next one.
I pull into your driveway, it's a Saturday night. You look like $1,000,000 wearing that dress I like.